Hi, thank you for joining me. My name is Patrick Mock, and I'm going to be doing an overview of the communication styles used in the movie Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. Some of our objectives are to determine communication techniques. We're going to analyze these different techniques, and we're going to review them, and then we're going to close out this program. Some of the techniques that we're going to be analyzing are culture, listening, verbal and nonverbal messages, emotional and conversational messages, interpersonal relationships, interpersonal conflict, and interpersonal power and influence. So let's watch our first scene.
Report by Soviet High Command on their recent naval exercises in the Black Sea. Just what the Admiralty has been begging us for some information on. Where did you get this? I didn't. Percy and his little cabal walked in with it. Shut up.
Style appalling. Patently a fabrication. This could be the real thing.
It's genuine. It's gorgeous. But its topicality makes it suspect. Smiley is suspicious, Percy. Where did it come from? What's the access?
A new secret source of mine.
But how could it possibly have access?
He has access to the most sensitive levels of policy making. Named the Operation Witchcraft.
Percy and his pals bypassed us, Smiley, and gone straight to the minister. Percy has been allowed to keep the identity of his new friend top secret.
The minister agrees with me that too many secrets are going on here. Too much failure, too many scandals, too little solid intelligence.
Percy does have a point, Control. We should be fighting communism, not each other.
Well, we're losing our reputation. Our partners.
You're bloody yanks.
We've had enough. There's going to be changes.
We need to decide if we want to be part of the past or part of the future. I should have left you where I found you. Look, Control. All of you!
From this scene, we see a lot of different communication techniques being used. Some of the things are the power and influence that are being displayed by the different characters. Obviously, power and influence plays a big part in this group of men. Control, the leader at the table, he's using it a lot to gain something over the other people at the table, to show his dominance over them. And oftentimes he'll interrupt or shout or things like that. Also, the emotional and conversational messages within this scene can be seen in ways like the emotional outbursts that each character does. They have little regard for a lot of the setting that they're in. Part of the emotional intelligence is, to know the time and place. These characters have letting their emotions get the best of them by their violent outbursts and things like that. This is a very formal setting, and they've just let the emotions run rampant inside this room. While most of the men are arguing and bickering, some of the men are using the active listening and as part of their communication techniques. George Smiley, for instance, he's using his evaluative, comprehensive, and critical listening. Our textbook, Making Connections, defines critical listening when you're listening for facts, information, or ideas that may be of use to you. Smiley and some of the others are using this listening technique to gain more information about what might be going on. The interpersonal conflict in this room is also very apparent. A lot of these men don't really seem to want to come together to form some kind of answer or collaborate in any kind of method. Most of it is just part of the competing management styles. And in some cases are even avoiding it altogether, and very little accommodation is going on between the men in the rooms. Our second scene will focus on the nonverbal and verbal communications and the interpersonal relationships of our characters. It's a short scene, so let's watch it.
After today, Peter, you have
to assume they're watching you. If there's anything you need tidied up, now's the time. There's someone else you can't tell me. I'm grown up.
Several things have gone on in this scene. In the beginning of the scene, you see George giving Peter some advice. George has used his friendship with Peter to be able to speak candidly about what might be going on. Peter, listening to George as one of his superiors and a friend at the same time, seems to have taken this advice to heart. Peter's gone home and what we think is broken off the relationship with his significant other. If we use Knapp's model, Peter has gone straight from their relationship into the termination phase in Knapp's model without even going through the avoidance or any of the other steps in the termination process. You can see that Peter's significant other is also trying to get some information out of him, but is failing, and Peter's using silence as a barrier to this communication. And his emotions at the end of the scene obviously show how torn he is about what might be, about how he feels in this situation. Our third scene will focus on the culture and interpersonal relationships between the characters. So let's take a look.
This businessman, Michael Trench, holiday romance. So, I take my time with it.
I know who you are. I want to talk to your boss. Control. I have something to trade. Something big. I want a new life in the West. That's the deal? Tell them.
In this scene, a lot of the different parts of the communication styles would be culture and interpersonal relationships. From culture, we see that the different culture of both parties, one being Russian and the other being English. The spy, he thinks that his target will be an easy target because she's vulnerable and she's looking for a relationship. However, she's also not as dumb as he might think. She's caught on to his scheme of him trying to con her, and she realizes who he is. In this kind of interpersonal relationships, their self-disclosure part is very minimal. The spy, first of all, he's not given, obviously he has not told her that he's a spy, and he hasn't told her anything about himself. And this could be detrimental to the relationship. Even though the relationship is starting to form, it all begins from a lie, which we could learn that most of the times a lie is not a good way to start a relationship. From our textbooks, it says romantic relationships are complex because partners perceive a combination of feelings. Well, this could mean a lot of different things. If you're looking inside there, you see a lot of different feelings going on. A lot of nonverbal communications are making eye contact and they're touching and things like that to show their attraction to each other, when really all of it is founded on a lie. So to review, we've determined the different communication types used in this film. We've analyzed several of them, and we've talked about culture, the listening, a lot of the nonverbal and verbal messages that are going on inside of each of these scenes. We've discussed how the emotional and conversational messages might play. We've gone into interpersonal relationships and conflict, and we've discussed the power and influence inside these scenes. To close, the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy has so many different communication styles inside of it. It tells a story, and without these different communication styles, we might never have understood what might be going on inside this movie. George Riley Mills said in a paper for a Pinnacle training, stated that good playwrights, screenwriters, and novelists know how to communicate effectively using storytelling. This means that all the communication styles, most of them, can be all put together to form a story. And without this good sense of communication, a lot of the storytelling might not make any sense. So it's important that we know how to utilize many of these communication techniques. And this will help us to be informed, be able to speak better with other people, and it'll help us a great deal in relationships with one another. So in my opinion, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy brilliantly shows many different communication styles and techniques. It's been able to really get across a good storyline in ways that I might not have understood had I not had a better understanding of these different communication techniques. Well, thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great night. Please read the Works Cited page.